Hello, welcome to Jugglers on Juggling Season number 3, Episode 4. My name is Rich Kohut, aka Reese's150, and today's episode is going to be all about conventions. But not just the usual questions. I'm going to answer some of the things that a lot of people don't have the sense to ask. You know, a lot of the unwritten rules, like when is it appropriate to start a game of combat? How do I approach somebody that I've seen online but I've never met in person? And what exactly am I doing at a convention? This is going to be at least a two-part episode. Next week's, or 2 weeks from now's episode is going to be also about conventions and more of these questions. But for right now, I'm going to be answering 4 questions for you guys. The first is about combat. What are the basic rules of combat? What is appropriate for a game of combat? When do you start a game? And basically all those things. Number 2 is going to be sleeping space. How do I ask for some? Where do I get it? And what's appropriate in terms of that. Also, number 3, some general rules for if you're ever in a convoy, you know, where it's a line of cars all following a leader to the party or the sleeping space or wherever. Some general rules because not enough people know how to convoy correctly. And the last one is, what are you doing at a convention? What exactly do you do there? And this is a question that I'm going to start with in a few seconds, and one that a lot of people don't ask enough, and because they don't ask, they end up not going to any conventions at all. And I just think this is something that they're really missing out on, simply because they don't understand why they should go. I'm going to tell you why. But first, alright, so combat. First up, how do I start a game of combat if there isn't already one going? This is something that requires a lot of attention and the ability to see exactly what's going on all around you at the convention and when. Basically, the best time to start a game of combat is right as something ends, like either a show just ended, a workshop just ended, or the games have just ended. Or even so much as a group of passers, like 6 people passing clubs all at the same time, and they disband all at once. This is the time when you would hold up your clubs and yell for a game of combat. Because as immediately after something disbands for about 5 minutes, what's going through the mind of most jugglers that were taking part in it is, okay, that's over, so what do I got to do now? What moves do I have to practice? Who do I have to talk to? And what do I got to buy? And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of their ear, they hear combat, and they just go, and they gravitate towards it. So that's basically it. The worst time to do it is right in the middle of something. Like, right as you've arrived, a little bit late, and everybody's already doing something. There's only like 2 or 3 people looking around for something to do. That is the worst time, because people are not going to be drawn away from what they're already doing. Jugglers are not motivated, they're determined. Once they get on a track, they stay on that track for all of eternity. It's a general thing with jugglers. So you don't want to distract them, but usually you only need about 3 people to start a good game of combat, because after 3 people start going, others will join in. And pretty much within 3 rounds, I can guarantee you'll have at least 8 people, which is a decent game. So once that's happened, now let's talk about the etiquette. How do you play combat? What are the unwritten rules of combat? There's only really 2 big rules that I can think of that really piss people off, and I'm speaking from experience here because last week or 2 weeks ago at Philly Fest, this happened a lot with the kids that were there, this was their first time playing combat. First rule of combat: don't use anything other than clubs, devil sticks, or 3 Diablos. Anything other than that, you're just cheating. You know, I saw a guy playing combat with balls, and I'm like, go away. You know, I don't want to deal with you. Because you're just going to go around punching people. No, that's not fair. You know? Besides, it's much easier to punch someone in the face with a club anyways. But that's beside the point. Second unwritten rule is no attacks that the person can't see coming. No attacking from behind. No attacking while they're recovering their pattern and focusing on that. You know, they have to be able to see it coming before it can be considered fair. And, you know, nobody's really going to call you out on that because there are no referees in combat. But it is something that's going to get people a little bit pissed off at you. So just don't do it. Don't attack unless the person can see it coming. You know, give them a second to turn around if they don't know how to 1-up 180 or back cross 180. Just wait for them. They'll be good. So that's pretty much the basic rules of combat, the unwritten rules. I assume everyone else knows how to play combat. If not, go listen to Luke Burge's podcast. I forget what episode, but he did an entire episode on combat. Look that up. So next is going to be sleeping space. Alright, so most of the conventions out there last for at least 2 days. What does this mean? Pretty obviously, this means that you're going to have to find a place to sleep. Now, if you've driven yourself and you don't mind sleeping in the back of your car, by all means. No reason you can't do that, no reason you shouldn't do that. But if you're like me, and you have a truck, or you don't want to sleep in your backseat of your car, here's what you got to do. First off, if you can, find somebody else that you know, probably a friend who's also a juggler, going to the same convention that you are, figure out what their plans are, and just buddy up with them. I hate that term, buddy up. Join with them. Because 99% of the time, they've already got a place to sleep, and you can just go with them wherever. But here's a tip. Always bring what you need. Either bring a sleeping bag or a pillow or whatever you think you need to fall asleep. I personally don't need anything. I just use a floor space and my arm for a pillow. That's me. But bring what you want, because you never know what's available. Especially if you don't make plans ahead of time, which is considered a little bit rude. But, nobody's going to hold it against you. It's a juggling convention. You're all there. You're all camaraderie. Camaraderie? Yes, you're camaraderie. And, it's a general good atmosphere. People aren't going to kick you out onto the street. Especially jugglers. So, most of the time, don't wait until the convention starts to figure out where you're going to sleep. Because that's just, you're going to end up in a really bad place. Always look online, because most conventions out there are run by a juggling club. So very simply, find their website or find their contact info and just contact the club. They'll probably give you a list of places that are usually open for people to sleep on, and it's as easy as that. I've got nothing else to say about it. Just bring what you need, look ahead of time. It's not that hard to do. All you got to do is find the club info, ask them, and they'll probably help you out. So the next thing is convoys. How do you get to where you're going to sleep? So to sum up in a couple of words what you need to do in order to be a good convoy, drive like you're in New York or LA. Be an asshole. Don't let anybody get between you and the next person ahead of you or behind you. Just do what you got to do to stay in a group. If you lose somebody, you're lost. You're stranded in this weird place where you have no idea where you are, and you're going to have to end up asking people, how do I get this place? And you're going to end up at gas stations where people don't know what they're doing. It's just a nasty situation. Basically, there's two things you can be when you're in a convoy. You can be the leader, or you can be the follower. Most of the time, you're going to be the follower. So, in order to be a good follower, if you know that you're good at following the person, and you know that you have the capacity to be a really good asshole and not let anybody in between you and whoever's in front of you, be the second place guy. Make sure you are. Because you don't want to rely. The longer a convoy is, the more chance that the last person in line is going to be lost somehow. So you want to have as small a convoy as possible, and if you know for a fact that you're good, stay up to the top. Because the further back you get, the more chance there is of you falling off no matter how good you are. So, basically be an asshole. If you have the ability, merging onto a highway or something, there's not much you can do. But always try to stay within sight of, well, not within sight, stay as close as you possibly can to the next guy in front of you. Make sure that nobody gets between you and him. Because if that happens, you're screwed. But just generally be an asshole and you'll be fine. If you're the leader of the convoy, this is where things get really important. You have to make sure that you stop at every yellow light. If there's a yellow light, stop there, because chances are he's not going to make it back there. That. And also, if you notice, you have to be checking your rear views constantly. If you notice somebody's gone, put on your caution lights or whatever they are, the blinking, both lights blinking, pull over to the side as close to the curb as you can. You know, the first chance you get onto the side of the road and wait until you see him either pass you or get back in line. Then you go again. But generally, just, again, be an asshole. Don't let anybody between you and the person behind you. Stop at yellow lights. Don't let anybody do it. Just, yeah. Bottom line is, stay together no matter what happens. General rules of convoying that so many people I see just completely blow off, and people get lost way too easily. Next up is the last thing. Why exactly do I need to go to a convention anyways? So why should you go to a juggling convention? You ask this to hundreds of different jugglers and I guarantee you get a different response from every single one of them. Oh, I go to network with other jugglers. I go for the chance to play combat. I go to watch shows that are for jugglers instead of for random people that don't know shit about juggling. The main reason why you would ever go to a convention, no matter what other people say, is the atmosphere. I guarantee you. If you go to a juggling convention, no matter how rigorous your training schedule is, no matter how much you practice every single day of your life, you will always do better at a juggling convention because you have the atmosphere of people that are better than you and worse than you, just doing their best constantly. And that will pump you up so much on what adrenaline glands you have, you know, whether you have a big adrenaline gland or a small adrenaline gland. I don't even know why I'm saying this. But it'll get you up on this adrenaline rush that'll make you do better, and you'll break your own personal records there. It happens so often, but people don't recognize that that is the best thing about juggling conventions. I mean, even regular juggling clubs don't do it. Hell, I get so much better for every convention I go to, and yet for every juggling club that I go to, I'm like, whatever. But that's me and what I think makes the biggest point of a juggling convention. But like I said, there are other reasons. There are plenty of other reasons as to why you should go to a juggling festival or a convention, is to see the shows, to play the games of combat, to win at the games, to buy stuff without having to pay shipping, which is great. Oh, that's another thing that happens. Unless you've got a juggling supply store near you, like you live in New York and you just earshot away from Dubai juggling on Broadway, you know, a lot of the times you can't try out new props before you buy them. You want to buy a new set of radical fish, but you've never tried them before in your life. Well, I guarantee you at a convention somebody will have a pair of radical fish that you can try out and go, wow, these clubs are great. I'm getting them now. I am definitely getting them. So that's another great thing about juggling conventions, is the opportunity to try new stuff. That, and also, not just trying new props, like switching from PX series to radical fish, but just trying new things, like you've never tried boxes before in your life. You see a person in a corner doing box tricks, and you're like, I want to try that. You go over, you try it, you find out you're good at it. And so you buy your own set, and hallelujah, you have a new prop. It's as simple as that. Now, those the style points. Besides that was a really bad idea to take a bite of a cookie. It's a good cookie, though. Besides that, though, the main other reason that you ever want to go to a juggling convention is to meet up with other jugglers. It's as simple as that. Screw playing a game of combat, just to hang out with people that understand what DB910-531 is. There's just no way to describe it. Nothing you can say to justify it. It's just good. Just do it. As simple as that. So, if you still think that you shouldn't go to a juggling convention, well then there's no hope for you. You probably wouldn't enjoy it anyways. But for everyone else that found any of that slightly interesting, I guarantee you will find a convention interesting and worth your while. So that's it for this week's episode, I believe. Yes. Thank you for listening, or watching, whichever you want. My name is Richard Kohut. You can reach me at Reese's2050@msn.com or jojfans@gmail.com, whichever one's fine. You can also visit the website, Reese's2050.com/joj. Thank you for listening. Next week will be the second part. Again, juggling conventions. Major questions that aren't always asked. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in 2 weeks.